In this video, I want to show you how we can solve the problem of global styles in CSS by using BEM. And BEM is actually the methodology with block, element and modifier, and it helps without any additional libraries or frameworks write CSS in scalable way. Hi, I am ekaterina from Monsterlessons Academy, where I am teaching you how to become a developer or improve your skills of being a developer in learning by doing way. And if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I will link everything that I am mentioning in the description box below. So let's jump right into it. So actually, if you hear something about BEM, you are thinking now, why do you need BEM and why this guy is talking about BEM in 2020? Because actually BEM is quite old technology, it is methodology as I already said, you don't need to install any libraries and frameworks, but you actually don't need BEM if you are using some JavaScript frameworks in frontend. Like for example Angular or React or Vue, they all solved already this problem with scoped styles inside your framework. So you just write code and it is scoped. But I want to mention that not the whole web is built with front-end frameworks. There are still lots of websites which are built just in the backend languages, which means we really can't use these front-end frameworks there, but we still need to write somehow CSS. And actually, from my perspective, still until 2020, BEM is the easiest solution for me to write scalable styles in CSS and also solve the problem of global CSS inside backend applications. So what is this global CSS problem? Actually, if you are writing CSS in one file, everything is fine, because you normally will stick to the naming and you will understand that you need to use different classes. But actually, if you have quite a lot of pages or at least components, you need to use the same class names in different pages. For example, you have some user block in one page and then you have it in another page. And actually, it's not the same class, but it's just the same name. And then you have names collision because actually in CSS everything is global and you simply can't solve this problem in any case. And front-end frameworks are solving these problems for us, but if we just use some backend language, for example PHP or Ruby or whatever, and you have CSS, then we can use BEM to solve this problem. So let's have a look what is BEM and how it helps us. Actually, here you can see the official website getbem.com, and as you can see, here is the idea that our CSS has three main things. This is block, element and modifier. So here is an introduction, name and FAQ. We're actually interested in naming. So what is the idea? You have a block, and block is some entity in your code. So you need to start to work with your CSS like entities, so in a more programming way. So for example, one user is an entity, or at least some scoped isolated part of your CSS is an entity. For example, user card can be an entity, or feed is also an entity, so it's a block. It's all block, and then inside blocks you can have elements, which means this is child elements of one block. For example, you can have like headline, subline, content, something like this. These are all elements inside our block. And actually this is how we're building stuff with BEM. But actually we also have modifiers. This we need for different states, which means our block or our element can be in different states. For example, disabled or active or maybe highlighted somehow, which means we need somehow to show in our CSS that we modified the styles of our block. And let's check on the example and we can understand then easier why I like BEM that much. So let's say that we want to build a user card. So here I have index.html, here actually is nothing, just h1 tag and main CSS. So here is how my browser is looking, nothing is here, and let's jump here in main CSS. I don't have anything here and I have one PNG file, this is just for user card. So what is user card? We want to build one entity for our project, which is block user card, which means this is scoped isolated thing, which we can reuse everywhere. So now let's try first to write the markup for it and then our CSS. So let's say here I will remove h1 because we don't need it for now. And now we're starting to write our block. So for this we're writing div class user card. So nothing special here, you can see just some normal class. And actually this class is our unique class, which means this is our main goal, not to copy this class somewhere in the code. Because if you will create the same class, then everything will be broken. But normally you won't do this because you have like a list of your blocks and you understand what entities do you create. So it's not like you have one class like headline or content and you just put it in different places. Actually, your blocks are real entities. So this is our user card and we want to render some elements inside. And the first element of the user card is of course our image. So let's write here image and here will be class. I won't write now class. And now here will be our source. So as I already showed you, we have here Christy PNG, so let's put it here. So here source will be Christy.png and we simply close our image. So when I will save it and look in browser and reload the page, you can see how it looks like. So actually this is our image, but it is not styled yet. Now we want to add some class. As I already said, all elements inside our block are elements type. So we have block, element, modifier. So actually image is our element. And to create elements, we need to write the name of the block, so user card. Then we have two underscores and then some name. For example, in this case, we can say image or actually user image, but I think it is clear because inside user card, we have only one image. So you always have for elements this notation. You have here the name of the block, then two underscores and then the name. And as you understand, if this user card is unique in the whole application, then this thing inside is also unique because it is started with the name of our block. Now we need to add more elements. So let's say that we have here our content. So here we will have div class and we're not just writing content like we normally would. We prefix this content with user card and two underscores. And this is how we're creating elements inside our block. And now inside our content we want something like headline, then date and then description. So let's create exactly this. We have here this with user card and here will be our headline or maybe header and here will be the name of this user. So it will be Christy. Now after this header we want to add a date when this user was created or when this user was born. So here we want to create one more div and here we will have user card to underscores date. And inside this div we will have a date, for example, joined in 2013. As you can see, it is really simple. So we just create elements, everything is div or image if this is some other tag, and then we prefix everything with our block. This is it. Now here we have div class, user card, and here will be our description. And now I will close div, and here we write some description about our user. So for example, Christy is an art director living in New York. And now our description is there and we want to create a footer. So actually it won't be inside content, it will be after content. So here will be div class user card and here to underscores footer. And then inside our footer we want to write 22 friends. So here we simply have the amount of the friends. And as you can see, this is how we normally are writing styles. So here we have our block and actually all content inside can vary, which means we don't need to really have such structure everywhere. These are just all classes which we need in order to render a user. Which means if we, for example, at some place don't need image, we simply don't render this part. Or if we don't need footer, then we simply don't render this part. Which means everything is scalable and we can create our CSS like from Lego blocks. Because all blocks are simply the child elements of user card. So now here I want to open main CSS on the right, so we can look here inside our classes and create our CSS. So first of all, let's look how it is looking now. As you can see in browser, we have super huge image and then just some text inside, but actually if we will look in DOM, we have all our classes which are applied. And actually it is really easy now to check our DOM because we can just see our block and we can understand that everything which is going inside this div are child elements of this block. So let's start with writing some CSS. First of all, we want to style our user card. So here we have user card, just like normal plain CSS, nothing special. So first of all, here we want to say that we have width and then background will be white, so FFF. And now we have here border radius to make it rounded, and it will be 4 pixels. And now we want font size 14 pixels, and we want box shadow. So here box shadow, and it will be 0, 1 pixel, 3 pixels, then 0. And here we want to make this color, and then 0, 0, 0, 1 pixel, and then this color. So let's check what we have. So here I just created simple CSS for our user card. And now when I reload the page, let's make it a little bit smaller because it's really big. You can see here that actually we have our box shadow here. We have a rounded part, but of course our image is outside because we didn't style it properly. So now let's create styles for our image. So how we're doing it? We simply write user card -- image. So as you can see, these are super plain, simple CSS, but all these styles are global. But with this BEM methodology, we are not afraid that something won't be unique. So here we can simply say width, and it will be 100%. Now let's look in browser, and as you can see now it is looking much better. So we have here our image, it is now inside our container, and we have here some CSS for our user card. So here is our styles that we applied. Actually font size I wrote not correctly, so here should be font size, and now it should be even better. So we have our block, now here is our image, and we just need to style this part. So first of all, we want to make padding inside content, so it will be user card -- content, and here inside it will be padding 14 pixels. Let's check how it looks like. Now we have here nice padding, and it is looking better. After this, we need to style user card header. So here we will have it bold, so font weight will be 700 and font size will be 18 pixels. Let's check how it looks like. Here we have Christie, which is really bold. Now here is our content, and as you can see inside content we have header, and now the styles are applied. Now one more CSS, user card, and it will be date. And for date we actually want to make it a little bit grayer. So here I will write color RGBA, and here we will have 000.4. Let's have a look. Now our date is looking really grayish. After our date, we need to style our description. So here user card, and here will be our description. And inside we will have just margin top, and it will be 7 pixels. Let's check. Now we have here a nice margin, so it is looking even better. And now we just need to add some styles to our footer. So user card footer, and inside we want padding, and here will be 14 pixels and 10 pixels. And now we need border top. So here border top, 1 pixel solid, and we also want RGBA 000, and here will be .05. And now we also want color here, so RGBA 000, and here will be .4. Let's have a look. Here, as you can see, everything is styled really nicely. So this is how our user card component is looking like. Here is border, we have a nice indentation, everything is styled, and we can reuse this component everywhere. So now several things that are worth mentioning when you start with using BEM. As you can see, it is super simple. You simply create a block and you pack all your elements inside block. And you just think of your CSS as blocks. For example, you can create block top bar, block feed, block login form, whatever you want. But this is global styles, you don't need any libraries, and it is just working. So this is actually our markup for Christie. But what do we need to do if we have some different states? For example, when this user card can be disabled or active or whatever. Actually, normally we are solving this problem with the help of modifiers, which means we can add some modifiers to any block or element. But I'm trying always to write modifiers for the block because it makes more sense. For example, here we can say that user card can be, for example, disabled. So in this case, we're writing here user card, then once again, user card dash dash disabled. So what does it mean? Here, user card is the name of the block, and this is our modifier, which means we apply the modifiers with two dashes. And as always, here we have a name of the block and then the modifier. And of course, we can apply these modifiers not only for blocks, but for elements. And then here we will have, for example, user card, two underscores, content, and then dash dash disabled. So it will look like this, but it is really not that easy to support because you have different states for your child elements. This is why, if it is possible, I am always trying to stick only with modifiers inside our block. Now let's add a CSS for this modifier. For this, let's jump inside our main CSS, and for example, under our block, we can create user card and here dash dash disabled. So this is the modifier for the state disabled. And we can simply say here that we want opacity 0.5. And let's check this out. Now we're reloading the page, and as you can see, our user card is looking like it is disabled, which means actually now we can simply switch between these two states. If we just want to use user card, we just write user card like this. If we want to disable it, we are adding user card disabled modifier. So as you can see, it is disabled now, and of course you can add as many modifiers as you need. For example, it can be active or bordered or disabled or, I don't know, followed maybe, which means you simply create a new class with dash dash and the name, and you are good to go. So these were three most important elements in BEM, like element, block, and modifier. And here are some pitfalls that you can get if you just started with BEM. First of all, as you can see, I created all our child elements or just elements from the block, which means I wrote the block name and then the element. And I saw a lot that people, when they just starting with BEM, they write like this. For example, they have here content and they're thinking, okay, I need somehow to say that this header is related to our content. And they're saying that here we have content and then two more underscores header. And this is correctly wrong approach, because you can't really say that you have the element of the element, which means you always want to write elements just with a single flat layer. Because in this case it is more difficult to write styles. Of course you can write them like this, but in this case this element actually is not the direct child of our user card. And the idea is that you have only single level of nesting, which means actually we can, in this case, user card header use without user card content, which means we can simply reuse at some other place here. For example, here we can write div class, here we have user card, and we don't have anything inside, and inside we simply reuse this user card header, because as you can see we have only block and element, and we don't have any other elements because we don't have nesting. And this is super important to do correct, because in other case you have this dependency and then you don't have this one level relation, but you always need to put your header inside your content. In other case your code will break. In this case, you can reuse any element inside your block in any position that you want, and this is super important. Now, I want to show you how to use our BEM inside some preprocessor. Actually, if you are using CSS a lot, you really want to start with using some preprocessor, for example, less or SCSS or maybe styles. Which means actually that you have some preprocessor, so you are not writing CSS, but some sugar, which will then convert by some building tool your code inside CSS. And normally the most popular preprocessor that exists is SAS, and we want here to try and write all our code inside SAS. And then you can see why it is better like this. And one of the main benefits of any preprocessor is how you write nested styles, which means normally in CSS we can't really say that image somehow is related to user card. So now I will copy everything from here and jump in the website sasmeister.com. And actually I just googled in Google how to convert online SAS to CSS, because I want here to write on the left as CSS and on the right I see my CSS, because in other case if I want to show you it here in my editor, I need to install some build tool in order to process from preprocessor from SAS our code inside CSS. So here we can just paste our code on the left, and then on the right you can see our CSS code. And as you can see, it is completely the same because we didn't write any magic of SCSS to make this code better. And what I want to do, actually, I want to cut everything from here except user card and put it inside our user card. And now the idea is that inside all preprocessors we can use ampersand instead of our parent, which means we can write here and then dash dash disabled. And this is the same how it was user card disabled, because this element is written inside our user card. And as you can see on the right, our code, which was written like this, is transformed in exactly the same code like we wrote in plain CSS. Which means we can write here everywhere inside of this code ampersand, and I will just copy it and paste here everywhere. So actually, as you can see, we simply need to write our child elements and we are avoiding writing our parent. And this code is much easier to read because it is scoped inside our block. Actually, the indentation here is really bad because this is online service, but you get the idea. So here is user card and all elements are inside. And as you can see, it is simply the matter of reading, because you see, okay, this is my block, this is the end of this block, and this is the indentation of all child elements. And you even avoid typing this parent because you just put here ampersand symbol. And as you can see on the right, our code is looking exactly the same how we wrote it inside CSS, but now it is much easier to read and less to type. So now you know how in CSS you can avoid global styles and really structure your CSS in a good way by using BEM technology. And as I already said, you don't need any libraries or frameworks. And if you, for example, have some project where you don't have front-end framework, where you just get in scoped styles out of the box, I still think that BEM is one of the best solutions on the market. Of course, it's not the only solution. There are a lot of them, like, for example, SMACs, like SMACSS, and also, for example, Semantic UA is going in that direction. You can check them all, but actually, from my point of view, BEM is the easiest and the most scalable solution that exists. Also, I recommend you to check all my full courses that I will link in the description box below. And if you like this video and you want more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and put thumbs up in this video. And I will see you in my next video.